Well, yesterday we concentrated on, since this is the arcade show, we concentrated on our arcade ports that we've been involved in, so we won't try to rehash that. Brief introduction, David Crane. I started at Atari in 1977 working with Nolan Bushnell, before any of you were alive, probably.
I was.
And after 2 years, I spun off of Atari and formed Activision, and then brought these two guys in shortly thereafter. They were on the East Coast, I was in California, and it was nice to be able to create an office on the East Coast that we didn't have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, because we didn't know if we were going to like the guys, you know. And then, but because of that, Garry and I have worked together for 40 years, steadily since then.
So we started on the East Coast, Dan and I, New Jersey, the
Mafia capital of the world.
well, the center of video game development
The East Coast.
of the East Coast.
At that time.
I think we were the only
only.
video game people in all of New Jersey. I started as an art major in college. Really had nothing to do with any of this, but I ended up getting a part-time job in an engineering company, and I quickly learned my trade on the job. Continued my work at night in school, ended up getting an electrical engineering degree, and found myself making toys, electronic toys. And that took me from toys to video games when the Atari came out in '77 and started to really dominate the toy industry. The future of electronic toys didn't look great, so I reverse engineered the Atari VCS 2600 in New Jersey to learn how to do cartridges on it. And I did a cartridge Space Jockey 2K game, which was the outcome of my reverse engineering. That was sold by US Games, and then I was off and running in the video game industry. Dan came in a little after me, and we obviously started working together.
We left that firm at some point in 1980 and went to start a basement company at my brother's house, which we did 6 Apple II games for Hayden Publishing. Very exciting time. It was kind of fun. Garry at that point, I think, was off writing Donkey Kong for the Atari, for Coleco. I was writing a couple of Zork-like text adventures for the Apple that eventually got ported to the Commodore. John Van Ryzen of Hero fame and Alien Abduction was with us in the basement, and he worked on a couple of Apple games, Kamikaze and was one of them, and eventually Garry contacted Activision. We were all so impressed with the games and followed the 4 guys who started it like they were superstars. We literally had their picture up on the wall from one of the manuals, and we were very excited to meet them, like we were meeting Hollywood actors, and we were very, very excited to become part of them.
Now let me touch base on Donkey Kong for a second. Anybody watch American Idol, and you see they go all over the country to all these cities and audition thousands of people to find that, half a dozen that are going to go on TV. Well, Donkey Kong was just like that. After I reverse engineered, the only people in the world that did Atari 2600 were the people at Activision who had jobs, people at Atari who had jobs, and me. So when Coleco decided to do Coleco version, Atari 2600 version of Donkey Kong, they went out on their search around the country, and I was the only one. So I got the project. It was very exciting. I didn't get to go on television, though.
Not because you deserved it.
No, just because I was the only one. There was nobody on the list. I was the first one on the list and the last one on the list.
Got it.
So I ended up getting that project, worked on it for 3 months, every waking hour, and created a miracle from God, in my estimation.
In 4,096 bytes.
4,096 bytes. At the time, it was very well received. over time, in hindsight, the internet audience looks back on it and is less charitable. But that's okay, because I have thick skin.
It was stunning for the time. They don't
Yes.
realize in the 1980s, you were looking at
No, it's-
Activision games were beautiful, and then you were looking at some things from Atari that weren't so great, and this was beautiful. So,
Yeah, so what are you gonna do? But anyway, then when I finished Donkey Kong, I called Activision and I called Atari, and had no credibility at all until I told them I had just finished Donkey Kong. Then suddenly everyone wanted to talk to me. And we flew out, we met with both companies, we met these guys at Activision, we met folks at Atari, spent days with each of them, ended up choosing to go with Activision, and ended up opening the Eastern Design Center of Activision. As Dave says, probably the primary reason we got that gig was the fact that we were 3,000 miles away. And they were terrified of bringing anybody in to their lab because they had this synergy, the 5 or 6 of them. They didn't want to screw with that. So they said if we could find people who could do video games, but they were really far away, and there was nobody in Ethiopia. So they found us in New Jersey, and we opened up. And that was it.
Yeah, at Atari, there were 35 people in the department making 2,600 games, or supposedly making 2,600 games. But there were 4 of us that hung around together. We went to lunch together, kibitzed each other's games, helped each other out. And it turned out to be that group synergy that we felt was responsible for the fact that all of our games were better than anybody else's games. Because we had like 100 years of combined experience, and everybody would help with everybody's game. And we pulled no punches. I mean, if we saw something that looked stupid, we would tell the other guy it looked stupid. Fix it, you know. So yeah, in fact, it became a Harvard case study about this design center concept that we called it, which is you put a bunch of people who work really well, or a small group of people who work really well together in a place instead of 30 people all in one room, and it worked really well. So we found a ready-made design center because Garry had Dan and 3 other guys that they were working with already. So we just paid for the office and put them in there and said, go to work. We ended up with design centers in Pasadena, California, Boston, one other I can never remember.
Yeah,
Pasadena, Boston.
those are the ones that come to mind. There may have been one other.
There's one other, but
Yeah.
nothing came out of it, I don't think.
I think the only game that came out of any of those was, what's that
Beam
one?
Rider.
Beam Rider.
Beam Rider by
On-
David
on
Roth.
VCS.
Toy Story by Trammell has
That's right.
become big.
Toy Story.
But was that really a design center? I thought you worked at
No,
headquarters.
he was in.
Oh, Pasadena.
Pasadena, yeah.
Right.
Not Toy Story, Toy
Toy
Bazaar.
Bazaar.
Toy Bazaar.
Bazaar.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to start, and I said, so Dan, not counting games that you've produced, or, you know,
Right, how many have I physically written?
how many games, name the games that you've done,
Written.
written.
Crackpots, Ghostbusters, Kung
You'd be
Fu
thinking about
Master.
yours.
What's that?
I told him to start thinking about it.
don't have enough time.
Crossbow, F-14 Tomcat, Casey's Gold, Firehouse Rescue, that was a very large seller on the NES.
I remember that
Targeted to the 3 or 4 year olds in your house.
Yeah.
It was a Fisher Price game. Road Code Simpsons, Bart versus Space Mutants, Bart versus the World, and Flight of the Intruder I did some code writing on. So that probably is what
Is there a point to this list?
Well, we're basically going to list them and then see if the audience has any questions about any specific
Ah.
Yeah, but your list and my list are so long. I think we should just say.
But I'm going to also point out that every time I try to list them, I forget some. So,
Yes, that's true. So why don't we talk about systems? I mean, we did a bunch of NES games. I did Battle Tank,
Right.
and then I followed that up in the Super NES with Super Battle Tank.
But you did NES Bart versus Space
I
Mutants.
did NES Bart
Bart
versus
versus the
Space
World.
Mutants, Bart versus the World. Did NES a game for Activision called
Destination Earth.
Stealth.
Oh, right.
Stealth ATF, did a game for Acclaim called Destination Earthstar.
Worked on a boy's blob.
And Dave and I together worked on a Boy and His Blob for NES. I never did a Game Boy. You did some Game Boys.
You did, yeah, you did Game Boy.
But you also, you skipped the 2600 entirely.
Well, yeah, I did. I figured maybe this audience knows.
Keystone Capers, Pressure Cooker,
Space Jockey.
Space Jockey.
Really, and I contributed on a lot
A
of
bunch
bunches.
of, yeah.
Then on the C64, Designer's Pencil,
Gary
Gary
Kitchen's
Kitchen,
Game
Game
Maker,
Maker.
Crossbow.
Yes, Crossbow, C64.
Here's the trivia. You get your pens out. You can write this one down. No one knows this. Atari 8-bit computers.
Oh, that's right.
Reversey.
Your first game.
Othello, yeah.
Yes, Othello, Reversey. I cannot believe the economics are almost the same now between then and now. This Hayden Publishing came and said,
That was our first project.
"Yeah, well, here's a project for you. Why don't you port?" Anybody remember the names of the authors?
Did you go into and fix the code?
No, I ported.
You ported.
I ported the Apple II version
That's right.
to the Atari 400, 800.
That's right.
Spracklet, Dan and
Kathy Spracklen.
Spracklet did this Othello
Right.
game,
You ported it.
and I got paid.
No source code. Just here's a ROM image. Here's a.
No, I think I had source code.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, you.
I think it
All
was,
right, you
yeah.
probably did. You're right. I remember the blue line.
And I got the enormous amount of money of $500.
Oh no, shit! That was the. Oh, I didn't remember
That was the entire contract.
And it took them a long time.
It
Was
took like
and he was-
weeks.
Was
he
it
was
basic?
glad to get it.
No, it was
What's that?
assembly.
Assembly? It
It was assembly, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. And another one. I worked on a product called 3D Super Graphics.
I don't know that.
That was published by US something, American something, US something in New York. And what it was this guy, NASA engineer named Paul Ludis. He was actually interviewed on 60 Minutes because of this product. He had left NASA engineering and he went on the Apple II and he wrote very early 3D algorithms. And they were all just vector. No fill, wasn't enough processing time. And he ended up doing a piece in 60 Minutes about him because he lived up in the mountains inside a little
I remember.
a little cabin.
Yeah.
And he had a big beard.
Yeah.
And they talked about a super genius guy, and he did this thing with the 3D graphics.
Yep.
So the publisher knew me because I shopped in his store in New York, and he said, "You know assembly language, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Could you call his routines from assembly language? Because the demos he has are actually really slow because they're called from BASIC."
That's right. You had to speed them up.
So they gave me his code, and I wrote some demos in assembly language. Now, the funny part of that story is, I did a damn good job doing that because I knew assembly language really well. But he complained that my demos were only 2 or 3 times faster than his demos. He had tick, 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 and mine were like that, smooth. And he said, "Why aren't they 100 times faster?" I said, "Because all the processing is in the 3D math.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you're calling it from. It matters in
How
the
you're
3D
calculating,
math.
Yeah.
And his 3D math is only so fast." So, I thought I did a good job on it. But that was probably one of my first published works.
That's
And if
right.
anybody
I remember.
knows if there's a copy that exists of 3D Super Graphics by Paul Ludis,
Paul Ludis, yeah.
please let me know. I
Garry
will
also
buy it. I don't have a copy.
Garry also went up to the cabin with him for a while. Worked as a manifesto.
Mhm.
Because he used that.
Change his name later.
Changed his name
The
later.
rest is history.
Krasinski, yeah.
Yeah, I did buy some pipes for him.
I did. You did
Yeah.
buy some gunpowder for him.
Anyway, so that was way going back
Okay.
to the very, very.
I didn't even know that.
I
Yeah,
forgot
I worked
about
for the guy for 40 years.
30.
And after.
Well, I just thought of it because we're really digging through the cobwebs.
Well, if you want to dig a little further, I wrote a little bit of code for the C64 version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Well, there you go.
which was being, I think, published by Activision Europe. And they wanted me to write a couple of levels, and I did that post-Activision. I remember that.
So, what I tell people, the way I introduce us is I say, if you're talking about 2600, so I say, Dan did Ghostbusters, Kung Fu Master,
Ported Ghostbusters.
and the Crackpots.
Crackpots.
I did Keystone Capers, Pressure Cooker, and Space Jockey, and Dave did the rest.
Yeah,
And I
they
gave
did all
you
that.
guys some autographs earlier.
Yes. So basically, the rest of the catalog of games 2600 was done by Dave.
Obviously not accurate, because there were 4 of us who started Activision, but Dragster, Fishing Derby, Laser Blast, Freeway, Grand Prix.
Did you guys
Pitfall,
design Donkey Kong?
Hey, dude, let's
Sorry about that.
let's swing to Q&A, okay?
Yeah, there'll be a QA later where we're
Okay,
good.
sorry about that.
That's right.
Then we went to the Commodore 64, did Transformers, Ghostbusters. I was involved in Bart versus the World at the level of that.
That's right.
Well, that was NES. Yep.
NES.
NES, Garry
Boy
and
and
I
his
did a
Blob.
Boy and His Blob. I was in California, he was in New Jersey, and I was doing the Underground, and he was doing Blobolonia.
Well, you flew out for
And-
quite a lot of time.
Yeah, to finish it, I flew out
Yeah,
and
you lived
stayed in a flop house 2 blocks from the
Grandma's
the
house.
office. Yeah.
Literally
But
Grandma's house.
not our favorite time, but it was kind of funny because
Tough the internet, Dave.
we were transmitting sections of code back and forth between us overnight. After I went to bed in California, I would start an AOL transfer of data
That's right.
that would take 5 or 6 hours.
Using an audio modem.
Yeah, using
Yeah.
the original modem. And by the time he was up, it was done, and he would start to work, and then he would send me something. And that was quite an interesting project doing that. But
Right. You should have seen the flop house. I wish. I'm gonna go back and I'm
It
gonna
looked
photograph
like
it and I'm
a
gonna put it in a
grandmother's
slide.
house from the 1940s.
It was an old decrepit
Right
Victorian,
down the
Glen
street
Rock,
from
New
the office,
Jersey.
yeah.
Kind of musty.
Yeah.
You know, that smelled a little bit like, you know.
You spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
So,
It was
I
great.
mean, while we're on a Boy and His Blob, I don't know, we might as well tell some of the stories on that. We became the first licensed developer or publisher?
Yes.
Developer.
First, a little known fact, we were the first people licensed outside, well, in North America, or probably Western Hemisphere.
Outside of Japan.
But outside of Japan, to write code for Nintendo's machines. Before that, couldn't do it. And I went up and I visited with them after we were gone from Activision and NES came out. I immediately went up there with my business guy, a lawyer business guy, and sat down and said, look, we want to be licensed to write games for the NES. And this was after they had a great market in 1985, great test market. So they said, well, we're glad to license you to publish games on the platform, but you don't need to develop them. And I said, why is that? They said, because there are thousands of games in Japan that are done for this platform. It's the Famicom, it was out in Japan for years. Thousands of games. I said, so you don't need to build any. You want games, just license them from Japan. And I said, well, that doesn't always work. You know, you got cultural differences. There are some really weird games in Japan that just won't sell here, blah, blah, blah. And they were insistent. So they sent me on my merry way. I came back 3 months later, did it again. 3 months later, did it again. By the 4th time they were tired of seeing me, I walked in, they handed me a contract. And they said, here you go, you can develop games. But there's a caveat. Development system costs $35,000 each per seat. It's all in Japanese. There's no US documentation, no English language documentation. It's all in Japanese, and best luck.
How the hell did you do it?
Well, then I said to her, I
I
said,
don't
well,
remember that.
I said, given that, would you mind
Oh, that's right.
if we made our own development
We made our own
equipment, our own system?
You're right.
And they said, kind of snickered, like,
Good
fat
luck.
chance. Yeah, no, we don't mind at all. And we did it. We made a development system. We had this engineering guy on staff. What the hell is that guy's name?
Crane, something?
And
Old Dave can do it.
Old
Don't
Dave
worry
can
about
do
it, you know?
my life has been promising things into making Dave do. So Dave did it. And not only did Dave do it, we started getting phone calls where people said, you know, I either have to spend $35,000 with Nintendo for something that's written in Japanese, or I heard that you guys have something I can use. So we started selling it. And we sold it to many of the developers
Which
in
we
North
were
America,
Approved to do.
which Nintendo approved us to do.
Yeah.
And so we seeded a lot of the guys in
Good
North
business.
America.
The first money we made off of the NES was selling development systems.
Yeah, and that became a pretty good business for a year or two until Nintendo got smart and made their own. So anyway, yes, we were the first to develop on Nintendo in North America.
So basically, we said, all right, we're gonna develop and we're gonna publish. We need a game. And I was noodling on some weird concepts and came up with the concept for A Boy and His Blob. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do an adventure similar to Pitfall or Pitfall 2, I suppose. But I wanted to make it a tool-using adventure. And there were tool-using adventures on the PC at the time where you'd be out in a medieval castle and you'd go to a menu and you'd change your weapon from knife to sword to whatever, You go to this tool screen. And I hated the fact that you had to leave the world of the game and break the paradigm to go out to select a tool. So I decided to create a shape-changing blob that I saw in a cartoon show in the 1960s that I remembered and turn him into my toolbox. And you have to do something to control him. So if you know the game, you throw him a flavor of jelly bean and he transforms into a different shape based on the flavor of the jelly bean you throw him. And I did a little mock-up and sent it to Garry where the little boy was standing there and he grabbed a bean out of his licorice jelly bean out of his backpack, tossed it to the blob, and the blob was happily bouncing along. The blob goes, turns into a ladder.
So he sends me this code, doesn't tell me what it is. And
So push the button.
I run it, I'm looking at it, I go, what is this? And this little guy standing there with this marshmallow next to him. And he goes, push the button. So he tosses it, the little guy eats it and goes, and morphs into a ladder. And I just said, oh my God. So we have to do this. It was that cool. So Nintendo had this rule, and the rule was if you wanted something to get out for Christmas, they had to have it in their hands, done, completely finished, bug-free, ready to manufacture by May 30th. Well, unfortunately, Dave sent me this around April 15th.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we can't have it for this year. So next year. And then I sat there in my office for an hour tossing jelly beans, watching it turn into a ladder. I called David and said, maybe if the two of us worked on it together, we could do it in 6 weeks. And we said, right that point,
And the entire office got involved.
you know you're insane. So then by the end of that day, we had 25 people in my office. Everybody who had any skill at all in game design or graphics design or whatever. And we said, all right, we're gonna do this cool game idea that Dave Crane has. And everybody's gonna work on it. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this.
Mostly programming or art or audio, because Dave and Garry really did the design.
Backing up, we started on the Atari 2600 because we loved it and liked it and had development tools for it and everything. But every couple or 3 years, a new game console would come out. And television came first, and what did we do? ColecoVision. I don't remember what the order was. But every time a new console came out and became successful, we had to go all the way back to the drawing board and say, all right, how do we make games for it? We need to create a development system. We need to reverse engineer it to see how it works. We need to write a manual for the programmers. We have to do all that stuff. Then we have to write sound driver tools, music driver tools, codecs, data compressors and decompressors to output the display code. You had to do all that stuff behind the scenes before you guys get to see a single screen of a game, And so we hadn't done that yet for the NES.
Right.
So we had, in parallel, we had to have, all this other work going on. So that was a lot of the team was doing
A lot of
that
the team
kind of
was doing
stuff.
tools, right?
Yeah.
So when I told them what we were going to do, as they were all getting up to go, I said, and by the way, it has to be done in end of May.
6 weeks, yeah.
So they all stopped and looked at me. And then we had just hired this one guy who was so smart, he was from another planet. And he comes over to me, and I mean, this guy was a genius. And he comes over and he said, I have one question. And I said, yes, Rick, what's up? He said, is it normal to do a game in 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
A game of this
A
complexity.
game of this complexity in 6 weeks?
Yeah.
And I said, no.
But we're going to do it anyway.
Yes, so after about 3 weeks, Dave came out to spend the next 3 weeks
In Grandma's house.
in Grandma's house. And as Dave tells it, our days went from 12 hours to 13 hours to 14 hours to 15 hours. By the end, it was 23 hours. And Dave would walk back down the half a mile walk down to the old
little
lady's
flop
house.
For 4 hours of sleep.
And then come back
Come back
and walk
up.
back up. We had a little diner across the street in Glen Rock.
Opened at 5 a.m.
They would open it at 4 or 5 in the
4 a.m.
morning and make food for us because they knew we were there. So yeah, if you haven't lived here, you've had meatloaf at 5 in the morning.
Had great French toast.
And French toast, quite a treat. So so we had a problem. We knew we were going to come close, but we didn't think we'd actually get it to Nintendo by May 30th, end of day, because of shipping. I mean, we can't modem it to
I
them.
don't know if FedEx existed.
Oh, we did.
We used to, Delta Dash was something we did. You'd go to the airport terminal, give them a package, put on a plane, somebody on the other end picked it up.
Even that was
And
20.
even
And
that
that
took
was still
too long.
24 hours.
Yeah.
So what we did is we took one of our engineers and we said, we have a project for you. We packed up all the equipment that he needed to assemble and put together and make a ROM.
A ROM burner, you know.
We shipped all this equipment to Redmond, Washington.
Was it at 4 ROMs or was it 1 ROM?
It may have been 4 ROMs.
Whatever.
And put him in a hotel across the street from Nintendo 2 days before the deadline. And he sat there.
And waited.
And 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we sent him the source files. He burned ROMs, buttoned them all up. 5 o'clock, walked into
across.
Nintendo and handed it in. We made our deadline.
Hit by a car right as he was going.
Now, so
And-
that was May 30th.
And it was bug free.
Yeah, right.
We thought
It was bug free. We had
I think it was.
tested it.
Yeah. So that was May 30th. Now, the other thing is, if you're gonna produce a product and sell it for Christmas, you have to go to CES in June 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever, and show it on the show and show the.
Take orders.
Take orders, show the distributors, show the buyers.
You know, Walmart comes through, Toys R Us, everybody wants to see the new stuff.
So we had just finished about 20 hours a day for a week, and then pretty much no sleep for 3 days to get to that one point where we could send off the code. And then we got to sleep for 12 hours, and then get on a plane, fly to CES, and stand there all day demonstrating the game. That's what you do at these trade shows, right? And nobody else knew about it. We couldn't have anybody else demonstrating it, so we're showing the game. And as we're showing it, we start seeing bugs.
That's true.
So you're demoing it for Walmart, and you know, Blob disappears. It's like, look over there for a second while I reset the machine.
Well, did you know, and you brought a development system
We had brought a development system just in case.
in the hotel room.
And so after standing on this trade show floor, showing this game for the entire 8 to 5, or whatever it is, we then retired to our hotel room where we had a development environment and a tester. And Gary and I sat there, and since we had both written on the code, we had to both be there. And we said, okay, we saw a bug, it's such and such and such. And Gary and I looked at each other and said, that's in your code. So I would take the chair or the development system and hack it away at it, and then put it in the development system. And we had one of our testers who was lying on the bed, because there were only 2 chairs, and playing the game. Oh, saw another bug. Look at it. Gary, that's in your code. So we changed chairs.
And we get up, we move over, sit in front of the development system, and we are getting more tired and more tired.
This is all night.
We did it all night, till the morning.
And then stand at the trade show again for all those hours.
And then we did it a second night, and by the 3rd day of the trade show, the game was relatively clean.
And,
But we wanted to ask the testing department, exactly what is your problem?
and somehow you managed to get them to take the code a couple days
Yeah,
later.
so I sweet talked them into taking code a couple of days later, because we made the deadline.
And they hadn't looked at it yet.
Here, you haven't looked at it yet, here's a revision.
Right.
So, that's it, it's in a black hole, it's at Nintendo, never hear a thing. This is the company that said to us, you don't have to make games, you license them all from Japan. No, you guys don't need to actually design games, just license them from Japan and publish them.
And remember, they would not put it out unless they could put the Nintendo seal approval on it. And they would not do that unless they went through an entire major testing project or process.
So June goes by, July goes by, we hear nothing. August, my phone rings.
That was September.
Was it September?
Probably
It was
September.
20th.
And it was Juana Tingdale, who was the head of publishing and licensing, dealt with all the game companies. And she said, Gary, I have to tell you that Boy Who's Blob is the only game that's played in the halls of Nintendo these days. She said, it has overtaken the company. Everyone loves it. I said, well, that is great. She said, we do have a couple of comments. This is September, the game's supposed to be done end of June. So I said, all right. So if you ever read Nintendo Power, there was this guy in Nintendo Power that had a bow tie. Howard was his name.
Yeah, Howard Phillips.
So Howard calls me. He's a real guy.
Nice
Howard
guy.
Phillips, nice guy.
And he wears bow ties.
And he wears bow ties. And he calls me and he says, all right, we need the guy to do this. We need a guy to do that. We need this. We need that. He started giving me this list. And then he says, and then we thought we were done again. And then another 2 weeks go by and he calls up and says, there's a bug, you gotta fix it. There's a bug in the code. We can't go to manufacturing without this bug fixed.
Dave can
And
describe
we
the
said,
bug.
what's the bug? And I'll let Dave describe the bug.
All right, so anybody played a Boy Who's Blob? Am I preaching to people who actually know? So you basically, it's an adventure and you've got the blob is hopping along behind you. You turn around, throw in a ladder. That lets you get up to another level. Once you're up there, you whistle. And the blob transforms back to the blob. Then you throw him a honey jelly bean. He turns into a hummingbird and flies up to meet you.
That way you bring him with you when you go to high places.
And then you whistle and he transforms from the hummingbird back to the blob and you've got him with you. So you have to pay attention to your blob or you can leave him behind, right?
Lose him.
And somebody very important in Nintendo lost his blob.
Said
Yeah.
couldn't find him, went back to where it was, wasn't there. It's a bug.
And I said, that's because you did a stupid thing. I mean, it's not my problem.
So what if it was the president of Nintendo?
Yeah.
Don't be an idiot.
So,
This is the guy who wrote Pitfall with no extra lives the
No,
first time. But
the
let's
first time,
get that
yeah.
later.
Yes. So
It's your problem.
so anyway, so they said, you got to solve that.
yeah, they didn't buy our argument. It's not a
Yeah.
bug. I said it's a bug. Fix it.
Yeah. So here I am. It's September. They give me 1 day to fix it, right? And I said, well, you got to write code. You got to change graphics. Maybe I might have to have a test, go through a whole process of testing again, whatever. But I narrowed it down. I said, all right, here's how I'm going to fix it. And what I did was, in the original game, you had a what flavor was brick wall?
Great.
Great
That's
ball.
right.
Because it was the Great Wall of China.
I put a lot of puns in the game. and
Every
so-
one had a pun that's
or
associated with it.
alliteration or something.
Yes.
So the grape wall was you could throw him the blob a grape jelly bean. He would turn into a brick wall. Partially because you can make a nice looking brick wall on the NES.
Yeah.
We made a lot of our decisions based on what things were going to look like. And then that would stop somebody who was coming, some enemy was crawling or whatever.
Right. So the brick wall just sat there, and it was just a defensive thing.
It didn't really get used very much, right? So I said, we can probably do without that. So I said, all right, I changed one text table, and instead of the word grape, I change it to ketchup. Ketchup. And then if you throw the ketchup jelly bean, and it lands on the ground, the blob will teleport to the spot that the jelly bean hit the ground.
He'll catch up.
He'll catch up.
And can you imagine how gross the ketchup jelly bean tastes?
Now, to do that, I had to then write code to say, excuse me, Bob, don't eat the ketchup jelly bean.
He doesn't like them.
So if you throw him a ketchup jelly bean, he frowns and refuses to eat it. And it doesn't do anything if he's on the same screen. So people say, well, what is this jelly bean? I don't know what it does. But that was the solution, is if you ever lose your blob, just toss a ketchup jelly bean and bang, it teleports. And teleportation is actually pretty easy. You don't need more graphics or anything. You just change the pointer where the guy's, X, Y is, and there he is.
So that worked. Nintendo liked it.
That worked. Nintendo liked it, and somehow they managed to get it out by Christmas. The code was finished at the end of September instead of the end of May.
It was a miracle.
Yes, it's a miracle.
Somehow they managed to do it.
Although they manufactured all the games.
Yes.
Now, the problem was,
There was a bug.
there wasn't a lot of testing of that. I made these very simple changes, and I said, this is how you use it. When you test a video game, you have to use it in a way that the designer didn't intend, and then you see, oh my God, he didn't take care of that one particular condition of what happens if this.
Right, playing it the way everybody else plays it does not test.
Does not test, yeah.
If you play it the way we intended you to play it, we know it works, we've tried it. You've got to go do weird stuff and then find, oh my God, I just broke the game.
So it turns out, without any testing, there was a small problem with the ketchup jelly bean, and that problem was.
And take notes because you can do this
I think you
in
can.
the game.
I'm not, it's hard. But anyway, let's say that you throw the blob a jelly bean that he wants to eat. And somehow you could change your selection mid-flight of the jelly bean.
So you select with the button, licorice, you toss it, he's sitting there going, and halfway to him, it's in the air, hit the button, change it from licorice to ketchup.
Which is
Or
easy
ketchup,
to
yeah.
do.
Ketchup. Well, he doesn't, he's already made his decision that he's gonna eat it. So he eats the ketchup jelly bean, because he doesn't know.
What do you think happens if he eats the ketchup jelly bean?
Dies?
Explodes.
It dies?
In the air to that.
No, anybody else?
He
Throws up.
he
He turns into a
teleports.
brick wall.
Oh, wow.
It's the same code. The code didn't change for that, and the graphic is still in the ROM.
So you can make him turn into a brick wall, like by throwing him the grape jelly bean, the ketchup jelly bean. And so that's a really cool little bug.
Yeah.
Does the game end if that happens?
No,
No, it's
Whistle,
just
get it back?
yeah,
it acts the same way it
You
would have
whistle,
acted
it
if
comes
you.
back.
he whistle, he comes back,
Yeah.
but it's really funny. It's really
That, he's telling you he really doesn't like the ketchup flavor.
You made me eat
That's
it, now I'm a wall. Anyway, that's Boyness Blob. Last Boyness Blob story was, we were very proud of the game, and really was so brilliant for its day. And I can say that because it wasn't my idea. So brilliant for its day, and everybody saw it. She's like, oh my God, so charming and different, right? And puzzle solving. And that January, and then by that point now Nintendo loved us. And we've had a great relationship with them ever since, even up to this day. So I went to meet them in January after Christmas for the CES show in January. And I had business meetings with them. They set up like business conference rooms at the show. And I'm done with my normal licensing meeting with Juana and Howard, who's Senior Vice President of Nintendo, and I'm leaving. And they're gushing, much to love all our work. And I'm walking away, and Juana goes, oh, Garry, come here for a second. So I come back and I go, what's up? He said, someone wants to talk to you. So she walks me around the corner, and there's Shigeru Miyamoto, who created Mario.
Created Nintendo, basically.
Created Nintendo. Zelda, Mario, Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
Which one?
The Donkey Kong, yeah, that's what he said.
Yes. So it's Shigeru Miyamoto, the legend.
The legend of Nintendo.
And he comes over and says, I shook his hand, I was in awe. And he said, I just wanted to tell you that A Boy and His Blob is my favorite game on the NES.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Thank you, Shigeru Miyamoto, legend. and I just felt terrible that Dave wasn't there, because Dave would have liked to have heard that.
That would have been.
Yeah, and I made up the story, nobody knows, so, just to feed your ego. But that was a great moment, so.
Another good CES story was when Bob Gale came by.
Yes,
Bob Gale.
yeah.
Bob Gale, the creator of
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
The movie was his idea.
And he walked into our booth and he said, I just wanted to tell you guys I love your games.
And he's just, a little guy.
Out of
We're
nowhere,
like,
you know?
I'm looking at the badge, Bob who? And he explains who he is. I work with, Robert Zemeckis, and I created the movie, you may have heard of it, Back to the Future. And we were like, okay. We were very pleased. And then you did not. You must not have had your shipping address.
I didn't get one, but
A few weeks later,
Got
in
a
my
poster
office,
signed, yeah.
I get this 24 by 36 Back to the Future poster framed, and in silver Sharpie, he has said, "Gary, best luck in the future, Bob Gale."
Wow.
And that's something people always see when they come
Yeah.
to my office and go, "Is that Bob Gale? Is that really
That's
Bob
the
Gale?
Bob Gale.
That's Bob Gale? Yes, it is." So it's pretty cool.
Anyway,
Why don't we open up some
how's our
questions?
time? I mean, what do we do?
We have 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Questions from the peanut gallery? Yes.
I'm so grateful this past year and beyond where you visit like the taco group and then the Austin Classic Game Fest, and now here to talk about all these stories. And I can tell that some of these stories you really enjoy retelling, even if it's slightly different each time.
Yep.
However, what I'd like to know is in the Dallas Taco meeting, there were several points where you told whoever was operating the camcorder to shut off the camera because you had something cooler to tell. Do you have
Yeah.
a story like
I
that
think you
for
were
us today?
showing.
What was it about?
Well, we were showing sneak preview of Poseidon.
Oh, okay.
And also showing some
And we were
proprietary
showing an
tools.
internal tool that helps us
Oh,
make
right.
the best games, and we didn't want anybody to
That's
Make the
it.
best
have
graphics.
pictures of it. It's just
Yes.
ways of,
Yes.
it's a tool
yes.
that we've created in a couple different iterations that lets us manipulate Atari 2600 sprites in certain ways. And we just couldn't make some of the sprites that you see in those games without having
Right, you couldn't
this
make
tool.
the snake in Circus Convoy without that tool.
Because when we started doing graphics, we didn't have any tools, 1977, 79, whatever. We would take graph paper and we would color in the squares and hold them at arm's length and says, okay, that looks like a jet plane, or whatever. And then we'd go out and figure out what each pixel is in binary code, enter it manually into the ROM. Stuff like that. So we don't
So
have
that's
to
the
do
stuff we were doing. That's stuff we were
Can I have
doing.
a follow-up question?
Yes.
You can answer it as seriously or not as you like. So obviously you have crowds of people that come up to you, tell you about how your games have influenced them, and I'm sure you have more of those stories than you can remember. How would you guys like your work to be remembered later when you're no longer doing these shows? The lasting kind of a thought that you want people to have. I mean, I hope you continue doing these shows, but
Yes.
at some point you'll stop.
You spoke
Yes.
to my doctor? What's going on?
Well, actually,
Sooner than later.
actually I had my lower leg x-rayed last Monday, and on the drive to the airport, I got the phone call that said, you have a fractured fibula with displacement. What are you doing? I said, I'm getting on an airplane. So, we come anyway.
This man has a broken leg.
And I
bone
said
right
to
there.
Dave, turn around, go home. Dan and I will handle it, but now he
So
wanted
how
to
do you want
come.
to be remembered, David?
Well, I mean, if I'm dead, I don't care. You know, I mean, I don't care so much about a legacy or whatever. I love doing this. It is my calling. I've been doing it for almost 50 years, for Christ's sake. And it's just, I don't have to, and I can still do it because I can create. And the ability to create with technology is just something that I enjoy so much. I mean, I have an ego, so you want to stroke my ego by telling me I'm the greatest video game designer ever lived?
Dave, you're the greatest video game
Go ahead, go
designer.
ahead and say it. It's fine. Go ahead. You can say
He
it.
pays me to say it twice a day.
I didn't tell Miyamoto that, to put a
Yeah.
damper on the meeting.
Yeah.
So I can't really go any farther than that. I love making games.
I have a specific answer. One of my favorite products I ever did was Garry Kitchen's Game Maker
Yeah, that was good.
for the Commodore 64. And the idea was that I always had people who would say, how do I make a game? Oh, I want to learn how to make a game. Can I make a game? And I did a product called the Designer's Pencil. And it's funny because I was talking to these nice people yesterday, and they brought up was it Rice University? You played with Logo.
Logo.
And Logo was the programming language that you could move an object around and
Turtle.
make
Turtle.
a turtle
Yeah.
and make it draw. I'd never seen Logo. I saw it later. I'd never seen it.
Really?
At that point in time, I had never seen it.
Wow.
So I had this vision in my head of I wanted to take a number 2 pencil, put it on a piece of paper, and then write code
Right.
to let it do something. And I wrote the designer's pencil, and I created a programming language, very simple programming language. Go right 50 pixels, turn right, turn it 20 degrees, and you can write these little algorithms, and it did all this beautiful artwork, and that was
Like
really
a
cool.
spirograph.
And it didn't sell at all, because nobody understood what the hell it was. But that's okay. But what I did get is I got a lot of fan mail where people said, God, you let me
It's so close.
program, but I want to make a game, not a picture. So I said, all right. So I started over, and I took it, and I expanded on it and made Game Maker. Game Maker, I created this language, which was really easy to understand. Like, if bullet hit helicopter, explode.
Yeah, play this graphic.
And
This sound.
and one of the biggest problems when you make video games is taking media like animation or a sound or music and connecting it into your code. Well, was it done with Photoshop? Is it a PNG file or is it a JPEG file? You have to process it to get it in. So I said, the heck with all that. So I made graphics tools
Sound tools.
that if you drew Pitfall Harry running, when you were done and saved them, when you went into code, he came up as a choice as a sprite.
Yeah, just display Pitfall
There was
Harry.
no integrating them,
Run
no
Pitfall
bring them
Harry to
in.
left, right.
So you created objects, you went in and you wrote code and you wrote games. And I made it fast enough on the Commodore 64 that you could do real games. You could do games that, in fact, Dan wrote Pitfall in 2 weeks
Very powerful.
using the tool
I did all the
on the
demos in there.
C64.
And its wonderful thing is, we actually ended up doing Crossbow on the Commodore 64 using Garry's Game Maker.
Yeah, we did it in Game
And no
Maker.
one knew that that was the underlying engine. It allowed us to make the game very quickly. And had Activision or Garry pursued that, it may become one of the engines today that's used.
It would have been like Unity.
Right.
But unfortunately, back then you didn't make something and then nurse it for
Iterate
10
it. You
years
made
and
one
iterate it and improve it and port it. So it didn't happen. It just came out and went and go.
But the reason you brought that up,
The reason I brought that up, what was the reason I brought that up?
Well,
No.
designer's pencil.
Yes.
no,
You're what you want to
the
do.
people who
So
apply-
people come to me now at shows, and it inevitably happens at every show. In fact, this is the first show it didn't happen, so I think we should probably leave
It could happen right here.
Could happen right here. So somebody will come up, like the last show, a guy came up and he worked for Lucasfilm. And he's one top game people at Lucasfilm. And he said, look, I've driven 2 hours because I heard you were here. And he said, I just want to tell you that I'm a video game designer because of Game Maker. Said, I got that when I was 12. I learned how to program on it. And I knew what my life's passion was, and I now work for Lucasfilm. And I get those people all the time, maybe once or twice a show,
Yeah.
and that is my legacy. I don't care about anything else I did if I could help these people find a career, right? That's what was so cool.
Very nice, that's good. And now we hear the new Commodore is coming out in November, I think there was, or this month? Or...
Yeah, but Game Maker's not going to work on it.
No, I know that, but it'd be nice, it'd be wonderful to have a tool like that again.
I still have people saying, make a new Game Maker. Make it so that I can make games on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a
That's
couple of
called
free
the
nights,
Unreal
I'll do
Engine.
that.
It's really hard to use.
Tell them to buy Unity.
Yeah, that's right. They did it already.
This chap has a question.
Are you guys responsible for Donkey Kong for the Atari 2600?
We are.
He wrote it.
Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Kitchen.
Kitchen.
Mr. Kitchen?
He's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Like Gary or?
Gary.
Gary.
And that's Dan.
The gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Gary.
You're welcome.
Right there.
Yeah, all right, so I didn't get the answer yesterday because you guys ran out of time.
What? No, wait, are we doing it again?
All of you first question,
You've been in here sitting here scowling.
You're the
at me.
guy with the question like that.
why did you guys all leave Activision, and specifically David, since you found it,
Go ahead.
co-founded it?
Well, Gary left
Find it
first.
more.
Okay,
That's true, Garry.
And it was really just a matter of spinning off his division into a separate company, which ultimately became Absolute Entertainment.
Right. They wanted, you know, we had talked about it, that the game industry absolutely collapsed. Video game sales for Activision, round numbers, went from, you know, 150 million a year in Atari sales to 30 million in a year the next year. And that will certainly make a bad day if you're working at Activision. So it was a bloodbath. And part of the bloodbath was they called me and they said, hey, you know, your team over there, you know, why don't we get rid of this guy and this guy? And I said, no. I said, if you're going to start doing that, we'll just leave as a group. And they said, great.
We're not paying for the office anymore.
Great.
Yeah.
How soon can you go? Here's your hat. What's your hurry? So we left.
It was collapsing everywhere. So
Yeah, it was just every office.
in my case, the board of directors blamed the CEO that I had put in place at the founding for the crash, which of course it wasn't his fault, and fired the CEO and put in a guy who didn't know games, didn't know nothing, and I said, this is Atari all over again when they brought in Ray Kassar from the Burlington Industries, a towel company. Anyway, so the writing was on the wall at that point, and then he said, oh, by the way, we're cutting your salary by 75%. We're happy to have you stay. You know, please stay. I said, no, thank you. So it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah. And then he literally drove them into the ground. They went into bankruptcy.
And the irony is, you've heard of Imagic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Imagic hired this guy, his name was Bruce Davis, as the CEO, to land Imagic into Chapter 11. That's his only claim to fame in the video game business, was to take a company into bankruptcy.
Right. And so that's how he ended up at Activision.
And our board
he
of
did the
directors
same thing.
hired him for that, you know?
Yeah. And his claim to fame was, for a brief moment, blink, it was maybe a year, change the company from Activision, which we all admit is a pretty terrible name for a company,
To
to Mediagenic,
Mediagenic.
which sounds like an illness. I'm sorry you have Mediagenic. Please give to the Mediagenic Foundation.
Yes, a genetic disease.
And they actually, Activision was literally Mediagenic for about a year.
I never knew that.
Oh my God, look it up. And then Bobby Kotick, this young kid whose dad had a lot of money, and Bobby had some money, came and visited us at our office once.
Bankruptcy, yeah.
And Bobby was a guy, he was 20s maybe?
22.
Yeah, and one of our smart ass employees, he's about 20, 22, very boyish face. He comes in and talks to us for a while, leaves, and a guy said to me, who was that guy? I said, it's Bobby Kotick, he wants to buy Activision out of bankruptcy. And he came to talk to us, and he said, looks like Doogie Howser, CEO.
Dookie has
Oh, wow.
That became his nickname.
No, it's his nickname. And Bobby bought them out of bankruptcy, $600,000, and assumption of like $10 million in
20
debt,
20
$20 million in debt, and immediately changed the company back to Activision.
Well,
And with, the rest is history.
there was a study done, you know, the Q score, all these people who talk about logos and branding and all that kind of stuff. And they said that the name Activision would have cost $50 million to recreate something with that kind of reach. So that's the value they put on it. The name Activision was worth $50 million, and Bruce Davis decided to throw it away.
You're not a big fan of him,
I am not a big fan.
Any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, were there any game concepts, whether it be at your time at Atari, Activision, or Absolute, that you really wanted to make but weren't able to / didn't have time to, or any reason like that?
Well, what often happened is, not often, but it did happen, you would finish a game and play it and say, this is not fun. This happens all the time because it's an iterative process. We'll start the game, we'll have an idea, and we'll play it. That's not fun. But one of the things that we're all really good at is looking at a game and saying, you know, it's not fun, but if I did this, this, and this, I'll bet it would be fun. And then you code it, and a week later you're playing it, and hey, it's much more fun. And I've had games on the Atari 2600 where I reached that point, and I'd used every sprite, I'd used every byte of RAM, I'd used every byte of ROM, and there was nothing left I could put in. And I literally put it on the shelf. I had a game, a motocross game, where you were going cross-country on a motocross, and that's about all you could do was watch a motorcycle run across terrain, and there wasn't any pickups, there wasn't any hazards, there weren't any enemies, and I said, I can't turn this into a game. I quit, and just put it on the shelf. So it happens. It does.
Yeah, and there were always regrets about things you wanted to build that you never got around to. Can't think of any offhand.
Really? You serious?
Well, I can't. I can't think of one.
Is it with a baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After I finished Designer's Pencil, or maybe before Designer's Pencil, I started working on the Commodore, and I said, I'm going to do the ultimate baseball game, because I'm a huge baseball fan since I was 5 years old. And I said, I'm going to do it, and it's going to look like television. So I did a view from the outfield. You see the pitcher behind, a little bit of perspective. You see the batter back here, batter, you know, ready to go. Guy winds, pitches, and throws. And it was magnificent. That's all I got done was that part. And then Activision said, you know, video games are dead. So do creativity software. Do stuff that, like Print Shop had sold really well from Broderbund. Do stuff like that. So I put my game aside. But I had showed it around the lab a little bit. And I'm not saying this is true. I may be dreaming. But
You may be.
Don't
I
say
may
it.
be dreaming.
Don't say it.
But I did show it to Bob Whitehead. And then a month later, Bob Whitehead left and started Accolade and did Hardball. Had exactly the same perspective. And
But that was the perspective from TV cameras on the.
yes, it was. And
Nobody had done it.
and I'm not saying Bob ripped it off. He may have been influenced by it, but it's a Hardball came out and it's like, he finished my game.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? But I will someday. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna resurrect Pete Rose baseball, which we had done on the 2600 and 7800. I'm gonna go in
Make
and
it
I'm
better.
gonna surgically remove Pete Rose
Yeah.
because we can't have him in there. And I'm gonna make it a little better and we're gonna republish it because that's a great baseball game for the 2600 and 7800. And we own the rights.
Last question, we're kind of out of time.
There are some of us in the room that are old enough to remember your early work. I think my
So
first-
did David offend you when he said that?
No, not at all. No, I want to say thank you for the memories you created as when we were kids. I think our
Thanks
first
for the memory.
Activision game was Fishing Derby,
Yes,
Yes.
and we adored that game.
it was great.
Adored it.
Great
So,
game.
Thank you so much for the work you've done, because you've created priceless memories for the kids that were alive.
And we didn't know we were doing that when we were doing it.
I wanted to ask
We
you.
just thought we were making games.
Right, no, you created our childhoods.
We
Yeah.
knew the games were gonna be bigger than movies because they did everything the movies did, plus they were interactive. So we knew we were at the cusp of a big business. But the fact that people would still be playing our games from 1982 today,
Yeah,
I
that
had no idea.
was not predictable.
Funny story, short story on Fishing Derby is, you know, to create that game, to create all the games that I did, I had to figure out some new way to make the Atari 2600 do something that its designer never intended, you know. So I'm trying to figure out this display. And I create this goldfish, and then I create multiple goldfish on a row, and then I write their algorithm to make them randomly turn around and whatever. And that's the point where I'm saying, now how do I turn it into a game? And I had to figure out, okay, with the two fishermen, it was sort of a game, and then Bob Whitehead helped me with his technique that he used in boxing to make the shark. And now we've got a shark we have to avoid, and now we have timing, now we have two-player competition, and it's all really good. Well, halfway through, all it was goldfish swimming on the screen. And we were in the tiniest office. Our first office at Activision was 800 square feet. And the design lab was in the kitchen. So when the people from the business side had to come over and get coffee, they had to walk through the design lab and get the coffee from the sink that's behind our computer, right? And with that on the screen, everybody who walked by with their empty coffee cup would stop and start staring at it, mesmerized, like you'll see kids in a dentist's office staring at the fish in the fish bowl. And literally, it would capture people. And they'd be standing there with their mouth agape, mesmerized by these dancing, these swimming little fishies. So I knew I had something there. At
It was
least.
the first screensaver.
It was
First
the first
aquarium.
screensaver
Yeah.
back then,
That's what it was.
Windows stole it.
Yeah.
All right, guess we're done. We can't go over time, we're already over time. Thank you, everybody, we greatly appreciate it.